Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully, everyone is staying safe, doing as well as possible during what is obviously unprecedented times. Hopefully, we're gonna, have some light at the end of the tunnel sooner rather than later. But again, hopefully, everyone and their families are doing as well as possible, staying healthy and staying safe. So, and thank you for joining us. Again, want to express my appreciation for so many of our frontline healthcare workers, whether it be nurses, doctors, healthcare professionals that are working in healthcare facilities all throughout Pennsylvania, people in personal care homes, nursing homes, and our first responders that are just doing the best job they can, tremendous work during what is clearly unprecedented times. More than 1.5 million workers across Pennsylvania have applied for unemployment as many businesses have remained closed. We are seeing some efforts, hopefully, to start to reopen the economy again sooner rather than later in some areas of the state. But it is going to be a long time, at least a couple of weeks, if not longer than that, before we're going to have a full reopening of the economy. But we've also seen challenges bring out the best in Pennsylvania. People that are doing extraordinary volunteer work, whether it be helping deliver food to students or families across Pennsylvania and certainly across the country, and people that are basically begging to do overtime work in our healthcare facilities, so they can actually make sure that they are providing the care they need, even sometimes at personal risk to themselves. This is clearly a crisis that is not going to be solved by arguments or bickering, and because there is so much at stake, and we all have to do the best we can to work through this together. Clearly, there's going to be disagreements, and when this is over, in a sense, like I've said, playing college football, you got to review the film, see what you did right, see what you did wrong, and try to make sure that we are better prepared for the next time. So it is in that light that not only try to make sure that we are doing better now, but also make sure that we are going to be better prepared moving forward. I'm announcing an audit of the state's handling of the business waiver program for businesses closed under Governor Wolf's shutdown order. The waiver process is managed by the Department of Community and Economic Development. The agency received more than 40,000 requests for waivers before the application period ended April 3rd. Now, I wanted to say one thing is clear why this is important. First of all, most businesses that complied with the governor's order to shut down. And then there were obviously some businesses that were allowed to stay open. And then the waiver process was created to see if a business that was shut down was allowed to stay open. During this during this pandemic, obviously our economy has taken a huge hit. The question we need to find out is, could more businesses have been open in light of also staying safe inside of social distancing? And were they essential to make sure that we were providing services that were needed? And was this done in a fair process? So with that, we're going to be conducting this audit. We actually began the audit process this morning. This is going to be critical in my mind if this pandemic continues further, to make sure that the process, if it has to be extended, is done so in a fair way. But I also am concerned, I don't think I'm alone in this, that this may not be the last time that Pennsylvania has to confront something like this. We need to make sure that we as a state and as a country are better prepared moving forward. So we want to make sure that if we have to go through this again, not only are we will we try to fix something that's happening right now, but if we have to go through this again, does the process need to be improved? Now, I do want to say I'm aware that obviously Senate Republicans sent a letter, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, asking for this investigation. I know the administration publicly expressed yesterday that they were open to that. I do want to say I spoke to the governor about an hour ago. He made it very clear that his team is going to be fully open. If there's any information we need, he wants to make sure, and he pledged that they would give us everything that we need to make sure that we do an independent, thorough investigation of this, to make sure that businesses across Pennsylvania were treated fairly, to make sure that businesses that were closed were the ones that should have been closed, and the ones that did get a waiver to stay open were the ones that should have been, and anywhere in between. Again, if something needs to be improved now, and one thing I told the governor, if we find a glaring problem now, we're going to make him and his team aware of it immediately so we can try to rectify something, again, in case this gets extended out again. And certainly for the next time, look, there's going to be at some point, there'll be another Auditor General and there'll be another governor. And hopefully there won't be another pandemic, but you never know. And so we want to make sure that future elected leaders are better prepared for the next time this hopefully never happens, but it may. My audit is designed to help make sure the waiver process is managed more smoothly. Should it be necessary again to use it in the future? You know, again, even if it was fair, we've heard a lot of complaints from businesses. So again, not saying they're right or wrong, but a lot of businesses do believe that it was cumbersome and not fair. Again, that's their point of view. And we are going to investigate their claims as well. We'll certainly during this audit process be reaching out to businesses that both got the waiver and didn't get the waiver to try to examine, you know, why some of those feelings are out there. Finally, I do appreciate that. I think even a little bit ago, Senator Costa spoke on behalf of the Senate Democrats that they wanted this audit as well. So look, this is a bipartisan effort. The administration pledged their full cooperation, and we're going to do our independent assessment. You've seen my 10 years Auditor General willing to be tough and fair on Governor Corbett, who is a Republican, willing to be tough and fair on Governor Wolf, who's a Democrat. This is not about, even quite frankly, caring about partisan politics at this point. I think hopefully everyone can tone down the rhetoric. My team full of professionals will do an independent assessment of this. If there's anything glaring, we'll immediately let the public know, let the businesses go, and certainly let the administration and the governor know. And then when the end of this audit is done, just like we've done before, hopefully it'll be at the Capitol, not through the Zoom channel. I know people are probably getting tired of seeing my Star Wars poster behind me now, but I don't get tired of seeing it, but that's a whole separate conversation. But hopefully when this audit is done, we'll be back in the Capitol, and we certainly, just like every other audit, will make it publicly available on the website, have a press availability, and make the case if any changes are needed, why they need to be done, and thoroughly explain everything that we found. So with that, again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, hopefully everyone is staying safe. And I know we'll maybe hopefully not too clunky, but may have to be a little clunky in how we go through the Q&A here, but happy to answer any questions. So thank you very much everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, General. No hands have been raised, but I will go through the list and ask each reporter individually. First, Ed Mann. Ed, do you have any questions for the Auditor General?
Yes, I do. Can you
Hi,
hear
Ed.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ed. Yes.
Yeah. Hey. All right, great, thanks. In terms of timeline, when do you expect to have this audit complete, and what information will you be providing publicly? I know a lot of reporters have asked for the full list of businesses received and denied waivers.
Yeah, so first of all, I always tell my team the same thing. So some of you that have been following me a while may get tired of hearing this. We're going to be as thorough and as quick as possible. We don't believe, and obviously, look, we're working from home as well. So, look, it's not normal circumstances, but from just a general point of view, this is not a complicated audit. That doesn't mean it's not important, but it's not overly complicated, at least at first blush. So we do believe we'll be able to get through this at a relatively decent speed, certainly considering that we're working from home and remote as well as DCED. We are going to examine all of those to the best of our ability. And it may be that we'll have to do a statistical sampling of ones that got the waiver and not, if it becomes too cumbersome to look at all. But we are certainly going to investigate that concern. We will bring to light everything we find, with the exception of business names. We, as you know, before, even when we audit the school district and they only have one superintendent and we're critical of that superintendent, we never name the individual. Similar to this, we won't name the actual businesses, but we will talk about what looks to be, what happened with the ones that did get the waiver and ones that didn't. So we will fully describe that situation without naming any of the businesses, and certainly none of the employees at DCED. If some of those businesses then want to talk publicly after that, that's certainly going to be their right, but that's just not how we'll handle it during the audit. We will look at those businesses. We will see which ones did get it, which ones didn't. If there are any patterns there where they all treated fairly, we won't name specific businesses.
Good.
And just if you can explain.
Oh yeah.
If you can explain why that is the practice in general, and why that is the practice.
Yeah, it is a general auditing practice to do that because the idea is improving situations, not naming names. Sort of in the criminal justice system, the attorney general names names because the idea is you're bringing someone to suit civilly or criminally. This is about trying to fix a process. So if we see a situation where a waiver was unfair, again, I'm just saying hypothetically, unfair to a certain segment of Pennsylvania, the idea is trying to fix that, not name that business or not name that employee. If, and again, I hopefully that I have no anticipation this will happen, but you know we've done this in the past. If there is a concern that somebody did something criminally, we certainly forward that information to the appropriate law enforcement entities so they can then handle it on that individual basis. But the goal of an audit is to make sure that the process is fair, and if there is a problem, we're fixing it, not about naming names.
Thank you, General. Next, I'm going to call on Paul Van Osdal. Paul, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Yeah, good morning, General. Are
Hey, Paul.
there any particular industries or sectors where you have received sort of a disproportionate number of complaints? In other words, any business areas that you really feel like you need to focus on?
We're going to focus across the board. Certainly, we did hear from a lot of small businesses and the construction industry. That's we heard from, but that does not mean that they are the only ones. So we're going to look at it with a very broad brush. Maybe we'll have to do a deeper dive into certain industries as we're moving forward in the audit. But no, we're not looking to necessarily just investigate one industry or another. But certainly, small businesses and the construction industry, we did hear a lot of complaints from those entities.
I apologize. We're unable to. Paul, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah. Quick follow-up, General. This is kind of an unusual situation, but we also heard some complaints from, believe it or not, vape shops that were allowed to remain open and clearly in violation of the apparently of the DCED order. Is that the kind of thing that would be a cause for concern if a vape shop was allowed to remain open?
Did you say bake or fake? I'm sorry.
Vape, V-A-P-E. Like
Vape shop.
Oh, vape. Oh, okay. I thought I said fake. I'm like, well, if a fake shop was open, then it's fake. Look, we're not necessarily going to look at, let me make sure I'm going to answer this question to your satisfaction. If somebody was staying open that shouldn't have been open, that may be something that will pop up during the audit, and that will raise other questions potentially as to, so if someone has specific concerns about that as to how that store was able to remain open, and who should have been the entity that was appropriately cracking down on that. We're looking at specifically the waiver process. But if one was staying open that wouldn't have had a waiver, I don't know exactly how we'll work through that yet, but that's an important issue to raise, and I'll be discussing that with my team as to how we can appropriately handle that during this audit.
Great. Thank you, General. Next, we're going to call on Stephen Caruso. Stephen, go ahead with your question.
Hi, can you hear me, Auditor General?
Yeah, I can hear you, Steve. Yes, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I just wanted to ask, this announcement comes a day after Senate Republicans, started pressing. They sent a letter to you. I think that was maybe Tuesday.
2 days ago, yes.
Were you thinking about doing this audit before you got the letter, or is this in response to Senate Republicans asking for an audit?
I had, and look, this is obviously no way to prove what's in my head, although I had discussed this with my chief of staff, Liz Wagensteller, that this is, and I had also said publicly that when the pandemic was done, there were certain items that we were going to review because, again, I don't think this is the last time we're going to deal with this. So this is certainly one that was going to be, in our wheelhouse that I thought was prime for us to be able to do, that we had the expertise to do, and I thought would have real value moving forward. It was clear that there was a lot of concern, especially as the possibility exists that this may be getting, meaning some of the business closures may be getting extended out further, that I thought the timing was getting closer to being right anyway. But I want to be clear about this. Look, the Senate Republican letter, certainly, I take that seriously. They're elected leaders. They're hearing from their constituents. Certainly the administration had even expressed that they thought the timing was right yesterday as well. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that had no impact on the timing of it, but this was one that we were already committed to doing. It was just a question of the timing.
Can I ask one quick follow-up?
For sure.
So just also, Republican leaders have intimated that if Wolf had released the business list, there might not have been as much controversy, there might not have been as much pushback if there was more transparency. Do you think the Wolf administration could have been more transparent up front with the waiver process?
I think what's more important for me is to go into this with an open mind. We'll certainly be asking them that question during the audit. So I don't want to prejudge the answer. So I want to hear what their answer is, why they did that. It may have merit, it may not, and I'll certainly, if I find that it does not, or at least in my judgment, it does not, we'll certainly level appropriate criticism there. But I need to go into this audit with an open mind. I do know that that concern is out there. That is a question we will be asking thoroughly during the audit process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Brian Sheehan at CBS 21. If you have any questions, go ahead.
Hey, General.
Hi, Brian.
When it comes to the process, I know you're in the beginning stages, but are you looking for patterns when it comes to businesses? I know you said, you're looking to see if it was done in a fair process. Right. Or are you looking for specific patterns of who was kept open and who was denied?
Well, I have, and so it's an entirely fair question, and a pattern may develop, but I never tell my team to look for patterns at the beginning, because I'm always concerned if I say, oh, look for XYZ pattern, that I've got it in their head, oh, that's what he wants me to look for. So we need to go, and I've always instructed my team, go into this with an open mind. Patterns may emerge, and then you do a deeper dive on that, but I've got to go into this with an open mind, and my team has to go into it with an open mind, and they're the best. They're going to thoroughly view this, and if patterns exist, we'll, again, level appropriate criticism or appropriate praise, depending on how it shakes out. But I don't want my team to go into this as they begin to look at it with any preconceived notions of what I already may or may not believe.
Yep, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. General, I'm going to read a question submitted by Capital Wire. How long do you expect this audit to take? And also, will you be looking at the same information that the Senate Republican caucus requested in their letter to the Wolf administration?
Again, we're going to be as thorough and as fast as possible, again, considering that we're during the pandemic and working remotely, but it's also not one of the more complicated audits, again, from the technical side. So hopefully we'll be able to move this in pretty rapid speed. But again, one thing I know, and I can't see her right now, but I'm sure Liz Wagensell, my chief of staff, is out there. And one of the things that she gets incredibly nervous about, I'm surprised I haven't even got a text about this from her right now that I would be able to see on my phone, is she always has a panic moment of if I am going to say the date that it's going to get done. So I don't want to get Liz mad, but in all seriousness, we're going to move as thoroughly and as fast as possible to get this thing done. We are aware of the Senate letter. Obviously, we'll be looking at all relevant information and the items that they've asked for. If we believe that they are appropriate, that certainly will be part of our audit review.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to call on NBC 10. NBC 10, any question? All right, we'll go back to them. Andrew Stockey is on with Channel 4 in Pittsburgh. Andrew, anything?
The way we have. Of course, a lot of that is because of market performance, but it's also because.
Okay, nothing from Andrew. Let me call on Brian Miskowski. Brian, are you on, and do you have any questions?
I'm on, no questions, so thank you.
Thank you, Brian. KDKA Television, you're on with the Auditor General. Please go ahead. Nothing from KDKA. I'm going to move down to WJAC TV in Johnstown. WJAC, if you have any questions, please go ahead. Okay, WJAC has no questions. Cynthia Fernandez from Spotlight PA. Cynthia, if you have any questions, go ahead.
Hi, yes, I'd like to know what your auditing process will look like, what your methodology will be, and what you're going to be looking for as you review those 40,000 waivers.
Look, we will send, and that's already in the process, an engagement letter to the Department of Community and Economic Development, which is technically the entity we'll be auditing during this audit. We'll be laying out audit objectives. We'll have an entrance interview with them. We'll be going over the documentation that we'll be requesting. Obviously, that's going to be remote right now. But we'll do that instead of walking over to DCED and having that meeting. We'll be doing it through some type of Zoom or teleconferencing, and then we'll make initial document requests. Our team reviews that, begins to look through specific businesses that applied for the waiver and didn't. Also looking at, clearly one of the issues here is there is a national standard for this, and the Wolf administration made some, however you want to phrase it, adjustments, changes to the national standard. We'll be asking for some of the reasons why those changes were made and how that impacted some of the waivers that were approved and not approved. We'll be examining the process for how people called in or emailed or through their website sought the waivers. Were there any differences through, if you called, person that answered the phone call A and person that answered the phone call B, or received the email A or received the email B, did you get any differences based on individuals doing this, or was it pretty clear and pretty consistent? Then we will, after we have our preliminary findings, before we make that public, we give that to the Department of Community and Economic Development for comment. We may ask for additional documentations. They have the right to then, answer or provide additional information on some of the information we were seeking. And then from there, we wrap up the audit with recommendations that may or may not be there. And then we publicly disclose the audit.
Cynthia, any follow-up questions? Not hearing any, so I'll go to Brian Roche. I'm sorry, Cynthia, go ahead.
That answered my question, sorry.
Oh, great.
Thank you very much. Next, I'll call on Brian Roche at WGAL-TV.
Hi, General.
Hi, Brian.
I'm just interested, most of my questions have been asked and answered. I'm just interested a little bit more in your conversation with the governor. He seemed really open to this whole process.
Yeah.
Does he believe that there's still many lessons to be learned here? I mean, most of the time you'd hear of someone in his situation trying to, well, let's just say, not being as cooperative, but it sounds like he's interested in what you find out.
Look, first of all, I've known Tom Wolf for a while, so it doesn't surprise me that he called today and just said, hey, if there's anything you're not getting, you let me know personally. I'm going to make sure you're getting it. He could not have been more open about it. And this also, I think, when this first broke, and not that we don't talk every day, but we've talked periodically. And one of the things that we stressed when this thing first broke, and we both take very seriously, is that when this is done, we've got to compare and look at what we did. We all made decisions during this. And I know he takes this seriously. I do as well. But we're all making decisions in something that we've never dealt with before. There's no playbook for this, at least not here in Pennsylvania. And so part of this is about, if there was something wrong with the business waiver program, we want to fix that. And he was clear that he wants to be, open about that. If something he did wrong, he said, he goes, you call that out, you do what you have to do, and then we'll work together to fix it. There's the other part of this, which is we're going to be not doing it just in the business waiver program, but in other areas as well, because we need to make sure that the state of Pennsylvania, and certainly hopefully other states are doing this as well, we're going to find out what we did right, what we did wrong, so that if this ever happens again, we're better prepared. And so, look, he made it very clear where he stands. And yes, I think they even made a public statement yesterday as well.
Is there anything specific that he wants to find as a result of this audit?
He did not ask for anything. He did not say anything along those lines in our private conversation. If he did, I would tell you, the only thing he made it clear is that if we did something wrong, I want to know about it, and you go as far as you need to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to go over to ABC 27 now and ask if they have any questions. Go ahead, WHTM. No questions from WHTM?
I had pop up on my phone here that Edman, I think, had another question. That popped up on my phone. So I just want to pass that along. Obviously, I want to give everyone an opportunity, but in case you missed that, Gary, I just want to say I saw it. I saw that pop up on my phone.
Thank you. Ed, do you have a second question?
Yes, I do. I want to ask the question I asked in the chat, and I thank you for responding. I'm sure some Republicans are going to be skeptical of how truly unbiased this review can be. I know you talked about that a little bit. If you can, expand upon that and those concerns that I'm sure will come up.
They asked me to do it, and I'm doing it.
Very well. Thank you, General. Any final questions from anyone?
Labor-intensive organization. Typically, cuts do mean some kind of layoff. I don't think we're prepared to make that decision.
It sounds like we're good. General, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Gary and my team, for doing a great job for setting this up, and certainly thank you to all the reporters for checking in. Again, everyone stay safe and have a good, well, at least here in central Pennsylvania is a pretty wet late April Thursday, and it's also, I already called her today, but it is my mom's birthday, so if somehow she's watching on Facebook, happy birthday, Mom.